Take a look at this topographic map of the Persian Gulf. This narrow bottleneck is the Strait of Hormuz. Because of the sheer volume of global energy that passes between these two coastlines, it is one of the most geographically sensitive choke points on Earth. This chart shows India's reliance on this route. Before the conflict, 90% of India's LPG flowed through this strait. But on February 28th, a joint US and Israeli strike on Iran turned it into an active combat zone, shutting it down overnight. Because of the restrictive geography, a localized military strike immediately severs the supply lines that multiple nations rely on to keep their economies running. Looking back at the chart, the macroeconomic shock is immediate. India's LPG imports plummeted to roughly 20%, triggering an instant spike in global oil prices. Out on the water, the data translates into a massive logistical blockade. Ships mid-transit suddenly came to a dead stop in the Persian Gulf. This map visualizes the traffic jam in the western Persian Gulf, with a dense cluster of stranded vessels. The real crisis is what they carry: 460 Indian seafarers caught in the crossfire, sitting directly on top of 87,000 tons of highly volatile liquefied gas. The blockade threatens a nation's energy infrastructure, while simultaneously creating a massive, slow-moving hostage situation for hundreds of maritime workers. Extracting commercial assets from an active war zone is a delicate operation. You can't just send in the military without risking escalation. It requires a highly synchronized bureaucratic response. This flowchart maps out that exact coordination. The Ministry of Petroleum works directly with the Directorate General of Shipping, Indian diplomatic missions, and the private shipowners themselves to build an extraction plan. But before any of the highly explosive cargo ships can be moved, the first priority is extracting the most vulnerable human lives caught in the region. This panel tracks the complex overland and air route required to get 345 stranded Indian fishermen out of danger. The government moved them out of South Iran and transported them safely into Armenia. From there, the evacuation flights completed the final leg of the journey, safely returning the fishermen to their homes in Chennai. Behind every physical rescue in a modern geopolitical conflict, there is a massive engine of quiet diplomacy and bureaucratic agility making the logistics possible. With the land evacuations underway, the focus shifts back to the water and the high-stakes effort to thread these massive fuel carriers through the choke point. Let's look at the tracking data for the Green Asha, loaded with 15,400 tons of LPG. You can see the tense route it navigated, hugging the Iranian coast and bypassing the islands of Larak and Kesh to avoid the heaviest conflict. This is a heavy ship moving at a vulnerable speed of just 12.8 knots, making its way toward the safety of the Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust in Mumbai. This data point shows why officials felt confident in the route. A day prior, another vessel named the Green Asha successfully navigated the same perilous transit, carrying over 46,000 tons of cargo. Threading millions of pounds of highly explosive fuel through an active war zone is an ultimate test of state logistics. The margin for error here is zero. On April 5, 2026, the Green Asha successfully broke the blockade and cleared the Strait of Hormuz. This infographic highlights the milestone. The Green Asha was the 8th India-flagged LPG carrier to escape since the conflict erupted. And the daily report reflects that success, confirming all transiting Indian seafarers are secure, with 0 incidents reported over the past 24 hours. It is a major tactical victory that momentarily stabilizes the panic within the energy supply chain. But despite the success of ships like the Green Asha, the macro operation is far from complete. A substantial portion of the commercial fleet remains trapped. Look back at the map. Vessels like the Jag Vikram, carrying 20,000 tons of LPG, are still holding their positions in the Western Gulf, waiting for a safe window to move. Out of the 22 vessels identified for evacuation, 20 are still classified as critical. The backlog is severe. The crisis reveals the underlying fragility of modern global energy. An economy's daily function is directly tied to the physical movement of fuel. As long as vital resources have to pass through narrow geopolitical choke points, keeping the lights on requires constant, highly orchestrated crisis management.